Alrighty.
Alrighty, well, welcome everybody. We're here today to talk about 2602 administrative adjustment and administrative adjustment 2603. So this is we're going to get started, but before we do, if anyone who plans to speak, if you can please put your camera on for a moment, raise your right hand, and solemnly swear that the testimony that you're going to give is an accurate one.
Okay.
There you go. I see. There you go. Yes, if you don't mind just putting up your right hand, Ben,
Yep.
if you plan on speaking. And then as long as you are solemnly swearing that you are speaking to the best of your knowledge and to that is just say I do.
I do.
I do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And if you'd like to turn your videos off, you do not have to keep them on. Thank you so much. So what we're here today for the first administrative adjustment is for here we have 26 AA 2602. This is for an application by Maryland Property Management Corporation, or MDPMC, requesting the approval of two administrative adjustments for 60 to 68 West Main Street. So Price, I'm going to turn this over to you.
All right. Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon. So as Andrea said, yeah, this is an administrative adjustment for Maryland Property Management Corporation for 60 through 68 West Main Street, for looking for a reduction in from section 164, 111B and section 164, 111D for reduction from the required 22 parking spaces for the proposed retail, restaurant, and residential use at the property to permit 16 parking spaces, as well as section 164, 115D3, an adjustment from the required 15-foot parking area, one-way drive aisle to permit a 10-foot drive aisle with a reciprocal easement with the property owner next door. So background wise, we received on February 6th of this year, 2026, an application to the Department of Community Planning and Development for an administrative adjustment for 60 through 68 West Main Street. The property is zone CB business in the central business zone and governed under the City of Westminster zoning ordinance. The Maryland State Department of Assessment and Tax SDAT online records indicate the property is owned by Maryland Property Management Corporation. The property currently houses a restaurant, apartments, and professional offices, and the applicant is proposing a coffee roasting operation, and is proposing a coffee roasting operation. Pursuant to zoning ordinance article 4, actually 9, sorry, section 164-47A, a coffee house is a principal permitted use in the CB Central Business Zone. The property was posted with the notice of this upcoming application, and the adjoining property owners were notified of application by first-class mail, and to this, as of this date, time, and place for the administrative adjustment. These notices were provided to meet the notification requirements set forth in section 4 of the administrative adjustment procedures as contained in resolution R39 on June 2nd, 26. A copy of the agenda was posted on the city's website. The authorization was pursuant to the Maryland Code, Land Use Article, Division 1, Single Jurisdiction Planning and Zoning, Title 4, Zoning, Subtitle 2, Designation and Adoption, Section 4205 and Section 164, 158.1A of the zoning ordinance. The planning director is authorized to grant administrative adjustments from the following requirements contained in this chapter: local height requirements, local setbacks, local bulk requirements, local parking requirements, loading, dimensional, and area requirements or similar. On July 14th of 2003, the mayor and common council adopted a resolution R039 that contains administrative adjustments procedures. Under section D of the procedures, an applicant should understand that an administrative adjustment is an exception to the general requirements imposed under chapter 164, and that its obtention is not a matter of right. The applicant bears the burden of persuasion and proof to justify the granting of an administrative adjustment. Under section 5 of the procedure, the director may consider the factors set forth in sections 164, 161A3, originally related to the BZA variance requests. The director shall not grant an administrative adjustment if to do so would violate the spirit and intent of the requirements or would likely cause substantial injury to the public health, safety, and welfare. The simplified site plan SS 2408 was submitted to the Department of Community Planning and Development for review. This first request is for section 164.11B and 164.11D, a reduction from the 22 required parking places for the proposed office, restaurant, and residential uses at the property to permit 16 parking spaces. In evaluating the requested administrative adjustment, the director may consider the factors to set forth in section 164.111B as follows. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applied to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes of uses in the zone. Pursuant to the zoning ordinance, section 164.111B, the applicant is required to provide 30 parking spaces. The site is afforded a 25% reduction by being in the downtown parking area. This reduces the number of parking spaces from 30 to 22. The applicant can provide 16 spaces on the site, along with 3 spaces for motorbikes. Such variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights possessed by other properties in the same zone and in the same vicinity. This is a property located in the downtown business zone, as the property is currently developed with the buildings circa 1860. The proposed parking utilizes the space to create as much parking on site as possible. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent properties and will not materially impair the purpose of this chapter or the public interest. There will be no detriment to adjacent properties due to these administrative adjustments. The second request is an adjustment from the 15-foot ingress drive aisle to permit a 10-foot ingress drive aisle. In evaluating the requested administrative adjustment, the director may consider the factors set forth in section 164.161A3. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to the properties or other properties or classes of uses in the same zone. Pursuant to zoning ordinance section 164.111, 115D3, there is one drive aisle with the width varying from 10 to 26 feet on the proposed parking lot for S2408. The entrance is only 10 feet, while the drive aisle between the perpendicular spaces is 26 feet and narrows down to 20 feet by the parallel parking spaces to the exit. The dimensions of the perpendicular parking spaces, 9 foot by 20 foot, meet the dimension requirements of the zoning ordinance. The 25-foot drive aisle width requirement is a little more of that makes no sense. I'm sorry. 25-foot drive width requirement is a little more than what is typically used as the industry standard. It is common practice for the parking lot and the drive aisle to equal 60 feet. This site plan offers parking spaces that are 9 foot by 20 with a 26-foot 6-inch drive aisle. The plan meets the 60-foot industry standard requirements. Such variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights possessed by other properties in the same zone, in the same vicinity. This property is located in the downtown business zone. The authorizing of such variance will not be substantial detriment to the adjacent properties and will not materially impair the purpose of this chapter or the public interest. There will be no detriment to adjacent properties due to these administrative adjustments. This property is currently surrounded by developed land. The findings of fact and conclusions of law. Staff recommends that the director consider the following as findings of fact and conclusions of law. The administrative adjustment that is being requested reflects an industry standard and common practice. The property is in the downtown business zone, which is one of the city's most flexible zoning classifications. The property fronts West Main Street, a main thoroughfare in the city of Westminster. The authorization of the administrative adjustment will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent properties and will not materially impair the purpose of this chapter to the public interest. Decision. Under Section 5 of the procedures, subsequent to the conduct of a hearing, the director shall decide the issues raised by the application. The decision shall be in writing and provide a brief explanation of the law and facts which support it. In evaluating the application, the director may consider the factors set forth in Section 164, 161A3. In making a decision, the director may grant the administrative adjustment in cases where the strict compliance with Chapter 164 would result in practical difficulty or unreasonable hardship, which has not been caused by the applicant. The director shall not grant an administrative adjustment if to do so would violate the spirit and intent of the requirements or cause it would be likely to cause substantial injury to the public health, safety, and welfare. Staff recommends approval of the proposed administrative adjustments. Section 164, 111B, and 164, 111D, and a reduction from the required 22 parking spaces for the proposed restaurant, office, and residential uses at the property to permit 16 spaces. Section 164 through 115D3, a reduction of the 15-foot ingress drive aisle to a 10-foot ingress drive aisle, whereas a reciprocal easement between the adjacent property owner will be provided. That is all for this particular one.
Thank you so much. Ben, as the applicant, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So I want to thank both the applicant for all of the work that's been put into this plan. We do understand that there were, lots of iterations, and we appreciate you working with us. And Price, I appreciate your giving us the staff report. So for the very first one, Price, if you can go to, oh, this is it. I'm so sorry. I thought we were still on the site plan. So as you said, there were 16 spaces that were allowed to be on site, 22 spaces are required, which gives us a deficit of 8 spaces. Ben, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an administrative adjustment for 4 spaces, which means that you will, being in the parking area, you do have the ability to pay for the 4 spaces as a one-time fee. And we can let you know what that one-time fee is. But what that does do also is that it gives you the ability to use the coop for your music
Okay.
area. So
Yep.
it will give you the ability to do that. Part of the reason that I decided on 4 is because when you do have those music events, the 4 spaces will be primarily what is closed off and being used for the music area. So I think that that was a fair,
Sure.
a
Yeah.
fair turn, thing to do. As far as the second administrative adjustment request, obviously you do have a unusual circumstance for the fact that everything is already existing. We're not doing this, building new. So the way that we're going to do this, and we tried to put a note on the plan originally as we were going through, but I think what would be better is to show it in a hatched way. Price, if you can go up a slide to the site plan where it says, the easement will be modified if and when the adjoining property owner is ready to address it. We're just going to say that we're going to be doing this by a reciprocal easement. We're just going to kind of put a little bit of hatching on the plan in your portion of the entrance in the 10 feet with a note that talks about the fact that this is half of a reciprocal easement. So
Okay.
therefore, when together, when the other project were to come in and be ready to do, we could put the reciprocal easement on their portion as well in the same spot. Therefore, you both would be meeting those requirements for an entryway. So what we need from you, Ben, is that the notes from today, so saying that administrative adjustment AA 2602 provided a reduction of 4 parking spaces, and that 4 parking spaces will be met, the requirements will be met through a parking agreement. So that's what that is, and then changing the wording for the reciprocal easement, just also adding the hatched area onto your portion of that entranceway.
Okay. No
So
problem.
that's the information that needs to be on the plan. So when it says here that the remaining deficit will be made up by the administrative adjustment, that is not accurate. So we just need to amend that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Any questions that you have for us?
No, Andrea, thank you so much for working with me on this. I know we've been on it for a long time, and thank you for, all the support.
Absolutely. And what we will write up also the decision as well, so you'll get a copy of that once it's complete. Ben, as we move on to the next administrative adjustment, you are not required to stay on. That's completely up to you.
Yep. I don't have much going on, so I'll stay on. No problem.
That's totally okay. So, Price, if you want to start talking about administrative adjustment 2603.
Yes. This is an application by 193 East Main LLC, care of Mr. David Johansson, and the property owner requesting approval of an administrative adjustment at 18 West Main Street, Westminster. Section 164, 115 D3 for a reduction to the drive aisle width because the existing drive aisle is smaller than required. On May 8, 2026, application was submitted to the Department of Community Planning and Development for an administrative adjustment for 18 West Main Street. The property is zoned mixed use infill zone and governed under the City of Westminster zoning ordinance. The Maryland State Department of Assessment and Taxation online records indicate the property is owned by 193 East Main LLC. The property currently houses a Pilates studio and a grocery/convenience store. Pursuant to the zoning ordinance, article, unfortunately, Roman numerals are horrible. VAIA, section 16439.2A, physical fitness facilities and food and grocery are principal permitted uses in. This should be the mixed use infill zone, not the CB central business. The property was posted with a notice of the application, and the adjoining property owners were notified of the application by first-class mail. These notices were provided to meet the notification requirements set forth in the section 4 of the Administrative Adjustment Procedures as contained in the resolution number R039. On June 2nd, 2026, a copy of the agenda was posted to the city's website. Pursuant to the Maryland Code, the Maryland Annotated Code Land Use Article Division 1, Single Jurisdiction Planning and Zoning, Title 4, Zoning, Subtitle 2, Designation and Adoption, Section 4.205 and Section 164, 158.1A1 of the city zoning ordinance. The planning director is authorized to grant administrative adjustments from the following requirements: local height requirements, local setback requirements, local bulk requirements, local parking requirements, local loading dimensional or other area requirements, and similar local requirements. I'm going to go down to the proposal section. The simplified site plan SS 2509 was submitted to the Department of Community Planning and Development for review. Request is an adjustment from the section 164 115D3 for a reduction from the required 25-foot drive aisle to permit a 23-foot drive aisle. In evaluating the requested administrative adjustment, the director may consider the factors set forth in section 164, 161A3 as follows. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes of uses in the same zone. Pursuant to the zoning ordinance, section 164, 115D3, there is one drive aisle with a width varies from 16 to 23 feet on the proposed parking lot for S2509. The ingress egress aisles are 16 feet. The required 15 foot for one way, while the drive aisle between the perpendicular spaces is 23 feet. The dimensions of the perpendicular parking spaces, 9 foot by 20 foot in front of the Pilates studio, meet the dimensions requirement of the zoning ordinance. The dimension of the perpendicular parking spaces average 9 foot 8 by 18 foot 5 inches along the drive aisle. The 25-foot drive aisle width requirement is what's typically used for the standard. It is common practice for the parking lot and drive aisle to equal 60 feet. This site plan offers parking spaces that are 9 foot by 18.5 foot with a 23-foot drive aisle. As you see, the plan meets the 60-foot industry standard requirement. Such variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights possessed by other properties in the same zone and in the same vicinity. This property is located in a downtown business zone, which is the mixed use infill. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent properties and will not materially impair the purpose of this chapter or the public interest. There will be no detriment to the adjacent property owners due to this administrative adjustment. This property is currently surrounded by developed land. Staff recommends that the director consider the following as findings of fact and conclusions of law. The administrative adjustment that is being requested reflects an industry standard and common practice. The property is in a mixed-use infill zone, which is one of the city's most flexible zoning classification. The property fronts West Main Street, a main thoroughfare in the city of Westminster. The authorizing of the administrative adjustment will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent properties and will not materially impair the purpose of this chapter or the public interest. Under Section 5 of the procedures subsequent to the conduct of a hearing, the director shall decide the issue raised by the applicant. This decision shall be in writing and provide a brief explanation of the law and facts which support it. In evaluating the application, the director may consider the factors set forth in section 164, 161A3. In making a decision, the director may grant the administrative adjustment in cases where the strict compliance with chapter 164 would result in practical difficulty or unreasonable hardship, which has not been caused by the applicant. The director shall not grant an administrative adjustment if to do so would violate the spirit and intent of the requirements or cause or would be likely to cause substantial injury to the public health and safety and general welfare. Staff recommends approval of the proposed administrative adjustment. Section 164, 115D3, a reduction of the 25-foot drive aisle down to 23 feet. Whereas the total width of the parking area meets the industry standard of 60 feet. That is all.
Sorry, I was ready to talk, and you would think 6 years after COVID, I would figure out my mute button, but that is neither here nor there. Is there anything, Alicia, you would like to add?
No, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, so the only request right now, just to make sure that I'm clear, price is the reduction from the 22 to the 20, I mean, from the 25 to the 22.
Correct.
Okay.
Back to 25 to 23.
Oh, I apologize, 23. So Alicia, we're gonna grant that reduction of the 2 feet.
Okay.
Just like I had previously said, I would need a note to be added onto the plan about
Okay.
today's hearing, calling out AA 2603, that it was, with this administrative adjustment, it was the 2 feet, reduction was granted.
Mhm. Okay.
So that is all that we have to talk about today.
Mhm.
I appreciate Price, your work on this, and I appreciate both applicants being on the call today. If there's any questions that you have, like I said, we're going to be working on getting you guys decision for this so that you'll also have it for your records as well. But if you have any questions, please let us know. We are going to, once we receive the new submittal with these notes on it regarding the administrative adjustment today, we will be able to continue working to get everything finished and processed. With that, I will adjourn our meeting.
All right. Thank you. And
Alrighty,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
thank
Have a
you.
wonderful day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.